Hello everyone, this is part 20 of What If Naruto Was Trained by the Kyuubi, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Yugito heard him, and giggled, though was soon deep in thought about his words pertaining to the other two women in his life. She hoped that they wouldn't mind sharing him with her as well, but if she had to fight for him, she would do so tooth and nail. But what mattered to her most right now was that the man she had feelings for didn't dismiss her after finding out. With that thought in mind, her smile grew before she snuggled her head into the crook of his N and just inhaled his scent in a long intake of breath. Arigato Naruto-kun, she thought happily, a goofy, happy smile on her lips while she rested against him, his musky and unique scent entering her nose whenever she breathed. You have her wrapped around your little finger now, Naruto-kun, you better not hurt her. Then again, I trust Natsumi-sama's judgment for mates, so I can trust you wouldn't ever do anything to purposely harm her. Azanami thought, with a happy smile on her face at seeing her friend so content, especially after how she first reacted from her assumption only minutes earlier. Naruto was finally able to calm down when he felt Yugito nuzzle into his N, because up until that point he was slightly afraid that he had completely crushed her emotionally. He knew the fear of both complete vulnerability when expressing your feelings to someone, as well as the fear of rejection that goes with it. And for people like them, those fears are doubled because of how their lives were lived in their younger years. Knowing that she was going to be okay, he sped up and only a few minutes later reached the end of the mountain ridge and saw the walls of Kumo. He smiled slightly at the prospect of getting Yugito medical attention, but then immediately frowned at exactly where she was going to be getting it, the village that vilified her entire existence. Yugito-chan, we are here, but rest for a little while longer, we'll get you to a hospital soon. He offered, only getting a mumble and slight nod from her. He smiled at her, figuring she must have fallen asleep after their emotional talk and from the fight itself. Naruto created 2 cage bushins, and had one hinged into Yugito in the cloth she wore from the Chunin exams before the other lifted her up like the originals were. Go to the village and ask for Akiko to help out. I don't trust anyone else. Once she is there, explain who you are and then dispel yourselves. He ordered, before the clones nodded and were off towards the hidden village. It had been nearly 15 minutes before Naruto felt his clones disperse and their memories flood his thoughts. He was happy to know Akiko was able to be found and even had medics at the ready. Unfortunately, the gate guards also informed the vault, Kumo's Anbu, who were also there, as well as another man who made Naruto's fists clench in anger, the Raikage. Shaking his head at the annoyances, he decided to let Yugito sleep a bit longer. He summoned his Onopo Genjutsu to lose his tails, ears, and feral features before traversing the last bit of mountainside, then mad dashing it along the dirt flatland leading to the village's gates. Kami-sama, Yugito. Akiko yelled in surprise and horror at seeing the true condition the two were in, and finally realizing why the Bushins had asked to bring medics. Naruto stopped in front of the group, and tried to reel in his anger at the Kumo shinobi Son's Akiko. You're just lucky I haven't found her Car-san yet, or you'd never have seen her again, he thought, his jaw clenching. Get her on the stretcher. The Raikage commanded. The medics swiftly listened, jogging up to the Jinchuriki pair with the stretcher, with vault officers right behind them. Yugito had been awake the moment Naruto stopped at the front of the gates, fear creeping up on her face from seeing the Raikage there along with his personal vault. Whose masks she knew intimately, from her days when she was viciously beaten as a child in the village. Her body subconsciously tightened around Naruto, her hands grasping his flak jacket for dear life, as she tried to hide herself amongst Naruto's disheveled hair. Naruto, feeling the fear and apprehension in her, began to growl ferally at the oncoming men, his body tensing and eyes darting, looking for even the slightest movement for a weapon. If they struck, he would at least take out all of Kumo with him. Give Bukiheim to me, a vault officer commanded, his arms outstretched. No, I told my clones to get Akiko-san, he answered defiantly. Perhaps, but she only a genin, and has no real experience on how to deal with her. The Raikage retorted, venom falling off his tongue when he said, her. Which is why my Anbu and myself came. He explained. Now give her to them. He ordered, his tone harsh with the authority of Kumo's leader. Too bad for him Naruto wasn't from Kumo. Experience, or no. I know she trusts Akiko-san, that is why I called her here. Naruto explained, his own tone growing sinister. The Raikage's brow rose. Young man, I do not know who you are, but you obviously don't know that I am the Raikage, the leader of this hidden village. The aged man said. I could tell very easily by your robes, but unless Yugito trusts you that means little to me since I'm not from your village. Now please let Akiko-san take her, she needs medical attention. The Raikage's eyes narrowed at the man's disrespect. She was his shinobi, his weapon to do with what he likes. However, he saw Naruto's unwavering gaze staring right back at him, and realized that unless he allowed the girl to take his weapon, the man wouldn't let her go. Very well. Akiko, take her to the hospital to get her the attention she needs after losing whatever fight it was she was having to cause this. He commanded, making Naruto's jaw clench at the barb. Akiko and the medics quickly came up to Naruto and he gently placed the now healthier looking woman in the stretcher, but noticed a drop of blood fall onto it, staining the green fabric. He looked over and saw that the medic who was holding the stretcher at the end where Yugito's legs rested had a blush across his cheeks, a perverted grin on his face, and whose nose was bleeding while he looked down at her unclothed creamy legs and other places. Naruto's demonic growl knocked the man out of his perverted thoughts before all the blood rushed off his face when he saw the look on Naruto's. Naruto quickly took off his flak jacket and placed it over Yugito's hips and legs, leaving his torso completely bare, making Akiko slightly blush at the muscular man in front of her. I suggest you do your job and nothing else. Naruto suggested, his voice completely without emotion, making the occupants around him shudder slightly. Akiko-san, I leave her in your hands. And if he even so much as touches her inappropriately while treating her, tell Yugito. He commanded while pointing at the white-faced man, his legs promising to give out any moment. Hi. Arigato Anno. Kazama Arashi, a friend of Yugito-chan's. I was at the Chunin exams. Your match was quite impressive, he complimented warmly. Arigato. I will do as you ask, Kazama-san. She bowed and turned around, but was stopped by Naruto's hand on her shoulder. Akiko turned only to meet with a kneeling Naruto who moved in close, his face next to her ear, making her blush slightly at his proximity. Akiko-san, give his to Yugito-chan the next moment you two are alone. He whispered while stealthily placing his three-pronged kunai in her pocket. He stood up and smiled at the young genin, before feeling a soft hand grab his wrist. He looked to see the hand belonged to Yugito, and he just smiled brightly at her as they looked at each other. The gazes expressed the silent conversation that went on between the two, before she too smiled, releasing his arm. Naruto looked back at the Raikage who nodded to the medics before they and Akiko jogged into the hidden village, leaving Naruto, the Raikage and his vault outside. Once the group was out of sight, the vault quickly surrounded Naruto, leaving only one large gap, and that was right in front of the Raikage himself. Now that they are gone, I can ask my questions. The aged man explained with an aggravated look. First off, how exactly did you find her? And there is no point in trying to deceive me. I see that you wear no village's headbands, so if we capture you, that means no one is going to come for you. So I suggest you answer truthfully, and I may consider to let you go without you losing a limb, or two. He suggested, smirking at his slight threat. Naruto dismissed the threat the moment it was spoken. I was running through the mountains to get to Konoha because I have business there. But I heard an explosion and decided to investigate. When I arrived, Yugito was in bad shape, fighting with two men in black cloaks with red clouds. I intervened and was able to get him to retreat before I treated her wounds as best I could so I could bring her here for better help. How she lost her cloths I do not know, they were already gone when I got there. The shirt she is wearing is mine, obviously. Naruto explained, deciding to tell most of the truth but leaving many of the finer details out. The Raikage looked at him to see if he could see any deception in Naruto, and after a long minute decided that he really couldn't tell. I will believe you, for now. But I will ask for a report from her when she awakens. He stated more as a blunt threat, so that if Naruto was in fact lying he would try to sniff it out. Unfortunately it didn't work and Naruto didn't flinch one bit. Now tell me exactly how you know her. Because I know for a fact no one ever comes to visit her. We met at the Chunin exams as I told Akiko, and just hit it off during the breaks in the exam. I was planning on coming to visit her later in the week actually. Naruto answered, once again only telling the half-truth. I see. I will have to have a talk with her, the lightning leader stated more to himself than the Hanyu in front of him, making Naruto's gaze harden, not liking the tone the man used. Very well, Kazama-san, you may be on your way. I have no more further questions for you. He concluded, waving his hand in dismissal, getting a nod from Naruto, and turned around before the Raikage's voice called out, making him turn his head back. I forgot one more thing actually, he said before snapping his fingers, and the surrounding VOLD unleashed their katanas. A lesson to teach you some respect. Leave him alive but without an arm, he commanded sadistically, before turning around and snapped his fingers again, which sent the Volt jumping at Naruto. The Raikage smirked while he walked back towards the village, hearing the clang of blades, battle roars, as well as groans of pain permeate the air. You're not a very good teacher, an emotionless voice mocked, making the aged man stop in his tracks. The Raikage whirled around, before his smirk turned into an expression of utter shock at what he saw. In front of him stood an unscathed Naruto with a sheathed, Souton case, in his right hand. While his 5 VOLD guards groaned and held different parts of their boss writhing in pain on the ground, their swords lying next to them. The thing about it was that it seemed that Naruto had fought with the sheath still on the sword, so the injuries were only painful, not life-threatening. How? He questioned, his voice stuttering from the sheer shock of a man defeating 5-volt level guards in close-range combat. His reaction was priceless in Naruto's eyes, and figured this would be a good time to try to get Yugito a break from these assholes. At the thought of this, Naruto's lips curled into a sadistic grin. Quality over quantity, they may have had me outnumbered, but my kenjutsu is one of the best and strongest styles in the world. They really had no chance once they drew their swords against me, Naruto said smugly, and for good reason. His boasts were all true. His proof was lying on the floor after all. Now there was something I wished to tell you. Quote. He said before phasing out of sight to reappear in front of the Raikage, who only had enough time to draw his kunai before feeling the sheath tip pressing against his T. Quote. I want this village, or at least the shinobi in it, since you control them, to stop disrespecting Yugito-chan. She is a good person and is keeping all of you safe by not letting the Nibi destroy your precious village, he commanded, smirking when seeing the Raikage's eyes widen that Naruto knew what she was. That's right, I know she is a Jinchuriki, another one of my friends is one as well. So I could easily tell she was just like him. Now if I come later to hear that my request of you hasn't been met, I will return and you will not like what I would have in store for Kumo. What I did to those 5 was child's play to what I'm truly capable of, Naruto threatened, his voice as cold as a glacier and eyes as as the Shinigami's. And what will I get in our return? The Raikage bargained. Never had he seen nor felt an opponent like Naruto. Sure, he knew he was strong and had an entire village to back him. But he knew Naruto was strong as well, and was only one man. One who could easily gain entrance into a hidden village and do almost anything he liked without notice. A shinobi without a village with revenge on their mind could be even more dangerous than an army of shinobi. In truth, I don't have to give you anything, since if you don't listen I will just take everything. However, if you meet my demands I will consider joining Kumo's shinobi ranks for Yugito-chan. He offered, knowing that the Raikage would never pass up a chance like this, especially after seeing what he had done to 5 armed Anbu officers. Naruto smirked inwardly when he saw the Raikage almost owe in his ceremonial robes at what Naruto just proposed. Just make a simple order to not harass his weapon anymore and he would gain a shinobi of this caliber. There was nothing to even think about. I agree, the Raikage almost blurted out, but reeled his excitement in at the last moment, making Naruto smirk again. We have an accord, however, as to the stipulations, Raikage-sama. Quote. Naruto began, deals always had stipulations. Quote. When I say disrespecting, I mean badmouthing her as a woman, her as kunoiki, her reputation in the village. She is not to be touched in an inappropriate manner unless given permission to do so by her. I want you to make a public announcement to the village of what Yugito-chan really is to Kumo. She is a heroine, not a demon. And finally, I want you to release her Ka-san. He stated his demands clear and cut, but when he saw the shocked look on the man's face decided to speak up. She told me about her life here, and I want that to change. He explained. I will do as you ask, however I cannot promise that everyone will change. The leader answered, said slightly pleading. Naruto nodded at the truth of the statement. Hi, that is understandable, you cannot force people from their beliefs no matter how idiotic. Therefore if I see a generous change in the village's attitude towards her, that will be acceptable. And about her Car-san, she is very sick and shouldn't be moved at all. Very well, once she is better I want her to be given back to Yugito. He is still trying to hold on to the mother as a bargaining chip against either myself or Yugito-chan. I'll have to find her before he gets a chance to then. Naruto thought. Was there anything else, Kazama-san? Naruto thought for a moment, and did find things he should change, but knew that once he found Yugito's mother the changes wouldn't be needed. And he would find her for Yugito's sake no matter what. No. That is all. When Yugito-chan returns to Konoha for the finals I will ask her how your end of the bargain has come along, Naruto said, putting his hand out. Very well, I will get started right away. The Raikage retorted, extending his own hand before shaking Naruto's. For your sake I hope you do. Naruto said, the true meaning behind his words clear as day to the Raikage. Naruto took his hand away before looking back towards the village, worry shooting across his gaze before he vanished in a swirl of purple flames, leaving the Raikage alone. We'll be able to beat Konoha for the top spot as the most powerful nation with her and Arashi on our side, the Raikage thought greedily, a devilish smirk across his lips, before turning around and walked back inside the village, leaving his vault on their own to get help. The next day Yugito was released from the hospital, and was surprised at the change in civilians' attitudes towards her, though she could tell most were forced smiles and gestures. Still some were genuinely repentant and acted as such, many of her shinobi comrades did the same. It wasn't until a few days later that she learned from the Raikage himself about the deal he struck with Naruto. She was shocked at this, but also figured it was something that Naruto would do and silently thanked him. In the past walking through Kumo was hell for her, but now for the first time in her life she was being appreciated for who she was and her SS, if even only a little, it was still enough for her. Flashback end. Yugito shook her head of the memories, and just looked at her friends with a smile and small blush on her cheeks. I'm doing alright Naruto-kun, she responded. He nodded. Good, 'cause I want you at top form for our match, he retorted with a smug smirk. She smirked as well. Not to worry, but don't cry to me when I beat you into the ground either ne. Oh ho, so the Neko finally shows her claws ne. He taunted playfully, while chuckling. As Naruto laughed he felt something warm and soft press against his cheek, making him slightly gasp at the contact against his whiskers. When the feeling left him he turned to see a slightly redder Yugito, her eyes looking at anything but him. I just wanted to say arigato again for what you did, for saving me and for Kumo, she explained, seeing the dumbfounded expression on his face at her kiss, failing to notice the arched brow on Natsumi. Seems Hana-chan and I are going to have a talk with her sooner than expected. She concluded. Although perturbed at how Naruto's list of extremely close female friends was beginning to get out of control, she understood the reasons behind it. Naruto was a beacon of understanding and a shelter for loneliness for people who have had harsh lives. They flocked to him like sheep to a shepherd for comfort and guidance, and let's not forget he is just one gorgeous man. Not a problem Yugito-chan, like I said back then. Will all participants of the final matches please head over to the fighters box? A monotoned voice called out through the speakers on the wall, interrupting Naruto's sentence. After the announcement, all of the fighters, roused from their trance-like states, got up from where they were and walked to the entrance of the arena. Don't lose Kyuubi, because your defeat is only allowed by my hands, a harsh voice whispered near Naruto, before he felt someone shove their shoulder into the back of his. The two demons and Yugito turned to see a smirking Valios walk past them, looking Naruto in the eye, before continuing on to the entrance. I hope Lee really takes it to him, Natsumi said, making the other two look at her strangely. They were still bummed they had missed Haku and Lee's match, and to make it worse Natsumi wouldn't tell Naruto anything about it. The two just shrugged before they began to move out as well, that is until a certain gourd caught Naruto's eye. Naruto jogged up to Hisan's siblings, leaving Yugito wondering what he wanted with them, before she and Natsumi caught up with them. Guys, he called out, getting their attention. Hey Naruto-kun, Temari greeted. We need to talk, he said seriously, before moving back into the room, his friends following close behind. Quote, I found the proof I need for Baki to call off Suna's aide to Oto, unfortunately, he explained. Really? That's great. That means we don't have to listen to that damned snake anymore. Kankuro rejoiced. Why did you say unfortunately? Gaara inquired. Naruto had hoped that he wouldn't be the one to pay attention to the little details. Naruto looked at his three friends, before looking down and biting his lip in apprehension. He was never one to take bad news well, until he grew up, that is. So giving it to others was even harder, and even worse when it was his friends. Because I figured out that Orochimaru is using your. He paused, shifting his body uncomfortably. Quote, Toussan as a puppet, or at least his position as Kazekage. He finally explained, getting a confused look from Kankuro, and a shocked one from Temari. Please elaborate, Naruto, Gaara pleaded, his tone showing his worry. Although their father had been very cold to them in the past, once Naruto came and left, the man changed and was a great father to the three. They grew quite close after a few years, and even more so when they began their shinobi training, with their father taking a great interest in teaching them what he could. Flashback. Damn that bastard. I swear he is going to burn for this. A slightly sweaty Naruto cursed while looking down a ravine in the middle of the deserted desert. Hi, he certainly will, Naru-kun, but it seems we at least found the evidence we needed to stop him, Natsumi reassured, her tone slightly saddened. The two looked down in the ravine to find the rotting corpses of the Sand siblings' father and his Suna's Anbu bodyguards. The boss was still festering with maggots, with decomposition already rotting away the last remnants of F that were still on the corpses. Naruto jumped down, and with a heavy heart chopped off the quite faceless head of the former Kazekage before sealing it into a scroll. Naruto jumped back up, landing next to Natsumi, and both used a weak Doton jutsu to give the men a proper burial. Once finished, the two said a silent prayer, before continuing on to their destination. Flashback end. Naruto shook his head of the memory, before looking back up to his friends and sighing before answering the redhead. We found your Toussan's corpse while we were crossing the desert. And from the looks of his body, he has been for a while, at least a few months. Naruto finally explained. The moment he explained himself, all three of the siblings had different physical reactions, but all their emotional ones were the same. Sadness and rage. Kankuro's arms flexed, his fingers twitching wildly, while the puppet on his back began to chatter, but nothing more. Tears had already begun to fall down Temari's eyes, her fists clenched so tightly that her knuckles were white. While Gaara's expression had changed only slightly, his emotions were expressed with the sand that was violently twisting around his body that almost seemed to scream for blood. Gomenasai, Naruto whispered with a apologetic bow. If you three are really that upset, then may I suggest you bottle your anger up for now so nothing seems amiss before the attack begins. Once it does, let it loose on the Oto shinobi that follow the man that killed your Toussan, Natsumi suggested. The siblings soon calmed, but could easily tell their rage was being contained if only slightly. Will you show us where? Temari hesitated to ask. Hi. Once all of this has come to an end. Naruto answered with a sympathetic smile. The three siblings nodded in agreement and bowed in thanks before turning to head towards the arena. Wait, I need to give my proof to Baki-san so he can tell the Suna shinobi they've been doped. But I don't know where he is. Do any of you have something of his? Naruto questioned quickly. I do, Kankuro said after they thought a moment. Kankuro took off the fingerless gloves he was wearing, which Baki had given him earlier for good luck, and handed them to Naruto. Naruto took them in thanks and used Kuchio's no jutsu to summon Heiaijin once more. Hi Naruto-sama. The little kid yipped happily, the only ones understanding him being Naruto and Natsumi. I didn't know Kitsune were a summon creature, Kankuro stated, quite surprised at the turn of events, while Temari was biting down the urge to grab the little kit and squeeze it to death. Soft and furry things are every female's weakness. Hi, they are my personal summons thanks to Natsu-chan here. Naruto answered, before looking down at the sitting silver-furred kit. Quote, Hey Aijin-kun, I need you to smell this and tell me the different scents you pick up. He ordered placing the gloves at nose level with the kit. Heieigen did as was ordered, and quickly found the scents, before sitting back down. I have done as you asked, Naruto-sama. I found 2 heavy scents. The kit yipped, before pointing its snout at Kankuro. His and another's. But this one is much older, probably an adult's. The kit surmised. Arigato Heieigen-kun, great work. Naruto praised, making the kit's tail begin to wag in happiness. Now I'm going to need you to take this scroll to the man with that scent and give it to him. But be warned, there are many people around and you cannot be caught, so use whatever means you can to get it to him. Once you have accomplished this, come find myself or Natsu-chan here, understand? Hi Naruto-sama, I will not fail you. He yipped once more before grabbing the scroll in Naruto's hand in his mouth, and a second later completely disappeared from sight. Amazing. They must be great for infiltration, Temari said, her tough exterior activated once more the moment the kit disappeared. That they are. Kitsune are known for being tricky and great with genjutsu, Naruto said with a small hint of pride. But now that is done, we should get to the arena before the matches start. He finished giving Kankuro his gloves back. The group left the room and walked the long hallways leading to the fighter's box, when a familiar scent filled Naruto's nose. Naruto smiled warmly, before turning towards one of the side hallways, seeing both Hana and Haku standing there with smiles on their faces, seeming to have been waiting for him. He told the group that he'd meet up with them in a minute and walked over to the 2 girls. Hey Hana-chan, Haku-chan. What's up? Nothing, Naruto-kun, we just wanted to wish you good luck in the finals. Even if we know they are going to be stopped. Haku explained, before moving up to him and giving him a friendly good luck hug, which he returned. Hana walked up to him next, kneeled to be eye level with him before cupping his cheeks in her hands, and pulling him into a deep kiss that made Haku blush and silently wish she had someone she was close to like that. But that could wait until she decided what she wanted to do with her life. Good luck, Naruto-kun, Hana whispered in a husky voice, after they ended the minute-long kiss, making sure she left one final sensual lick along his lips. Arigato, he said with a stupid grin on his face. They said the goodbyes, before the girls left to get back to their seats in the audience, as Naruto jogged to get to the fighter's box. He reached his destination quickly enough, stopping when he reached Natsumi's side. The box itself was really only a large waiting area high in the arena where the fighters had one of the best views of the fight, without all the crowding. Naruto surveyed the arena, making note of many people he knew. Kushina, Kasumi, who looked okay after her defeat, and Kyoshiro, who had an eye patch over his right eye and evidence of a rather large scar going vertically down under it. He noted many of the council members and their families, as well as the Junin sensei for the Konoha 12, although noted that Kakashi wasn't amongst them but took no heed over it. His gaze finally took him to the cage box, which was on the opposite end of the arena. His eyes hardened when he saw the Kazekage talking with Sarutobi. His emotions were roaring to come out, but he calmed them by G-sping the metal railing for dear life. The thought of Orochimaru got him thinking about someone else as well, and began to look for her through the crowd. With her inversed ponytail and purple hair, as well as the rather unique style of clothing she wore, it wasn't long before he found one Mitarashi Anko in the standings with the other Junin, though noting she was slightly removed from them all but Kurenai and Asuma. He saw her munching on some dango sticks, which he quickly learned was one of her food fetishes almost as much as her blood one. He couldn't help but slightly frown when he saw that forced and easily fake smile she put on when a fellow comrade other than the 2 previously mentioned tried to talk with her. Seeing that fake smile and goofy mask she always wore as emotional body armor got him thinking to the little talk they had a week earlier one night when he was training. Flashback. It was only a week until the final matches of the Chunin exams, and one Mitarashi Anko had just gotten back from an A-ranked assassination mission. Currently the purple-haired woman was gracefully jumping from branch to branch at a lazy pace while picking her teeth with a toothpick after just visiting her favorite dango stand for a post-mission reward. Most people would think her insane, well more so than usual, if they saw where she was taking her stroll, training ground 44, the Forest of Death. Although many people, Konoha shinobi included, avoided that forest like the plague, only setting foot upon the forest when absolutely necessary. Anko was quite the opposite. She found the large, vicious animals that lived there were like kindred spirits, causing her to be quite comfortable in that setting, and in fact after becoming a Junin herself got permission to build a house within the confines of the forest and had lived there ever since. The forest is quiet tonight, she mused after jumping off yet another branch. Too quiet in fact. There can usually be some ruckus of animals heard and yet nothing, she concluded, her eyes growing dark, and thoughts ominous. Anko, with the grace that only Kunoichi seemed to possess, pivoted her foot after landing on another branch and changed her direction by 45 degrees, after deciding to make a quick security sweep around the forest. After some time of circling the forest, she was about to give up when she heard a strange grunt. She immediately pulled out one of her poison-tipped kunai and went to investigate who or what made the sound. She quickly reached the origin, and hid behind one of the gigantic trees that surrounded the area. She slowly and silently sidestepped along the perimeter of the tree until her vision allowed her to see into the area the grunting came from, and was surprised at what she saw in the small forest clearing. Arashi, she whispered questioningly, as she watched him in both curiosity and fascination. Naruto was currently in his normal, adult, form, clothed in his usual attire, standing in the middle of the clearing. But if that wasn't odd enough for Anko to see, what he was doing made it that much more. Naruto was going through what looked like almost choreographed tai chi, like what she would see in those cheap knockoff shinobi movies. But the difference between that and what he was doing was obvious when you watched him. His body moved through the different stances with a fluidity that could remind someone of the gentle waves of the ocean. His posture solid after striking every position with precision. To the end, most would describe his moves as a beautiful dance. While that description would still hold true, only a shinobi could truly appreciate all the subtleties of his motions. Not only that, but the fact that although his stance after every motion seemed to hold a delicacy to it that made it seem like it could never hurt you. Only someone in Anko's profession could see the true strength in his strikes. Strikes that, if connected against a person, could easily cause severe damage if hit in the right places. Anko watched this sly dance continue, her eyes almost glazing over, mesmerized by the moves Naruto went through. After a few more minutes and one final position, that to Anko could be considered a king blow, Naruto got out of his stance, his body standing straight up, before he released a long controlled breath. However, what Anko never expected to happen occurred when he had released his breath. Large cuts and lacerations appeared all around the clearing and surrounding trees. The cuts were deep and a good 2 feet long. He was using wind manipulation while doing that. She questioned to herself, her eyes wide in shock after seeing the devastation that dance most people could think was beautiful had created in the vicinity. "You can come out, Anko-san," Naruto's masculine voice called out, making her slightly jump. "He knew I was watching?" she questioned, before in the corner of her eyes noticed that one of the wind blades had struck the tree she hid behind, and was only about an inch away from hitting her, which would have more than likely ended her life. He nearly hit me, she thought, her fascination turning into rage at the fact. Without missing a beat, she stepped from beyond the tree and marched into the clearing, a look of rage on her face. "You nearly hit me," she yelled, only a few feet away from him, the grip on her kunai tightening. "Well, what do you expect, Anko-san? Someone I couldn't identify at the time, sneaking their way around me. This village may not be at war, but that doesn't mean that those who reside in it are always safe. Me especially, with my relationship with this village's pariah. Besides, when I smelled snake and dango, I changed the course of the wind so it wouldn't hit you," he coolly explained. Anko's rage quickly subsided at hearing his logical explanation, and found him to be in the right in his actions. "Gomen," she whispered. It wasn't often she admitted being wrong. He waved his hand dismissively. "Not a problem. But why are you here anyway? From what I heard, people hate to be in here and only do so when ordered. Which is why I am. The quiet is nice for training." She perked up slightly. "Oh, I live here actually, and was just heading home after an A-rank mission," she explained. "I see, so you were patrolling the area then?" he questioned, getting an affirmative nod from her. "My apologies then for the intrusion. I didn't know you lived here, or I'd have asked beforehand," he apologized with a slight bow. "No, it's all right," she stuttered out, not used to people addressing her with such manners. "Anno, what exactly were you doing anyway? It looked beautiful, but I could see the strength behind it," she asked. A small smile graced his lips at her appreciation of his style. Ah, that is one of the taijutsu styles I learned in Iwa during my travels. It's a style mostly using your opponent's body size and momentum against them, expelling as little force yourself as possible. It's a style that many kunoiki used to use because of their more lithe body frames compared to men. But I find it just as good for me as well. It's also a good way to relax the body and mind after a long day of training. He explained sagely, though slightly lying about where he learned it from. Natsumi hated anyone learning the kind of jutsus she knew without her permission. His explanation, while the slightest bit assist with its backstory, actually piqued Anko's interest. A style completely relying on opponents' power to use against them while expelling the least from yourself. That is a style many of the more physically weaker shinobi and kunoiki in Konoha would like to get their hands on. After all, not everyone can be as strong as Mato Guy. Anno, do you think that you could maybe teach that style to me? She asked, both slightly disgusted with herself for asking someone else for help, as well as asking as meekly as she had, even if it was to the man who had saved her life only weeks before. I'm afraid I can't, Anko-san. He answered, making her unconsciously pout cutely. It's just a personal motto of mine to not teach anything I know to people that I don't completely trust. And while I trust you because of your relationship with Hana-chan, I don't currently trust you completely, perhaps in time, but not right now. I hope you understand, he explained. Although Anko was disappointed in not learning a style that could possibly allow her to win a taijutsu spar against Konoha's reigning champ Mato Guy, she couldn't blame him for not teaching her. Although I don't like it, I understand your sentiments about teaching people. Naruto only smiled, and thanked her for understanding, before he noticed her eyes flash a quick emotion that he could recognize without trouble, loneliness. In truth, he noticed that look in her expression on a few occasions when he went to go see Hana and had been meaning to ask her about it, just never found the right opportunity to. He decided that if there was a chance, now was probably the best. Anno, Anko-san, forgive my curiosity, but after meeting you several times I've noticed some things that I became curious about. Mainly the fact that many of the civilian and a few of the shinobi in Konoha look at you in a way that reminds me of Naruto. Not only that, but I also noticed that you tend to force certain emotions out when people are around you, much like he had when I first met him. I'm just wondering what happened, he asked. Anko looked at Naruto in the eye, before one of her fake smiles crossed her face. Arashi-san, I'm not sure what you mean. Everyone has their off days, it's not like some conspiracy against me. She let out an obvious fake laugh. Anko-san, if you don't wish to tell me, I understand, especially after what I just said a little while ago. He answered back. While I can't nor will force you to tell me, I'd appreciate it if you at least didn't lie to me about it. I know what I saw, and I have no question about what it means. He finished, his voice firm. Anko's laughter ceased quickly, before a frown crossed her lips and a far-off, sad mist seemed to fill her eyes. I don't wish to talk about it, she said truthfully, her voice losing the pseudo-jovialness to it. I understand, he said before an idea crossed his mind. Quote, ... I have an idea, Anko-san. He offered, getting the woman's attention. A bet, of sorts. We have a friendly spar, and whoever gets 3 solid hits on the other wins. He explained. And the wages? She inquired, the thought of a spar making her brighten slightly. He smiled almost devilishly. That's the beauty of it. We each wager what the other wants. You want my training, and I want your story. It'll be a battle of our wills, in a sense. Anko snorted at the man's ingenuity. While he teased her with his training, he is able to get a chance at learning about her past, which only a select few know the real truth of. She looked into Naruto's eyes for a good minute, seeming to realize the enigma that stood before her, and soon finding the idea of learning that taijutsu style too good to pass up, nodded in agreement. Great. Now as for the rules to the duel, nothing but a single taijutsu style is allowed, including those banda jutsu that are taijutsu oriented. All you can use is your fighting style, agreed? He questioned, seeing her eyes narrow to SS. She was hoping he wouldn't be so specific to the terms, but nodded nonetheless. Very well, mine will be what you saw me using, he said while walking to the other side of the clearing. Naruto turned, and dropped into the stance Anko had recognized earlier, before dropping into her own, which made Naruto raise an eyebrow. Hebekin, Snake Fist? He questioned, making Anko now raise her own eyebrow in question. She knew her ex-sensei hated people to know his jutsu, so she found it strange that he knew the man's personal style. Quote. Orochimaru is someone I plan on killing for what he did to Naruto-kun and Natsumi-chan, and knowing what my enemy can do could save my life. He continued as if reading her thoughts. Seems this fight is a bit uneven then. She admitted. Not really. I've only heard of the Hebaken, and only saw it once while fighting Orochimaru himself. You have already witnessed the style I'm using, so I find the playing field fairly even. He retorted. It won't matter, once I beat you anyway, she said smugly while smirking. We'll see Anko-chan, he taunted, making her hiss. Not unlike a snake. The two began their duel and quickly found that the playing field really was even. Naruto's style had a disadvantage because Anko was smaller than him, so the grapples and maneuvers were harder to execute and deliver. While Anko's style just didn't seem swift enough to hit Naruto's constantly flowing stances. The two were at a strong stalemate, but still getting hits on each other when they grew slightly winded. The duel didn't seem close to an end. It was almost an hour later, and the duel was still going, with both Naruto and Anko having 2 hits on the other each. Currently Naruto had just thrown Anko into the air heading right towards a tree, but at the last moment used her flexibility to twist her body so that her feet hit the tree before ricocheting off the tree right back at him. Naruto was surprised at this, but had enough time to step back enough so her incoming fist missed his face. As she passed him though, he was able to grab onto her and after a few maneuvers had her pinned in his arms which wrapped around her arms and chest, her body pressed against his chest hard enough that she couldn't escape but not so much that she was being crushed. Give up Anko-san, he said, an unseen smile on his face over his victory. Not a chance, she said angrily, before using the limited maneuverability in her left forearm and hand to twist back about to use one of the most powerful abilities known to kunoichi, the groin grab. The moment she felt something belonging to Naruto she grabbed onto it for dear life, and although she expected a sound to come out of him, she most certainly didn't think it would be a primal growl. He should be on his knees begging for mercy by now. She thought, confused after hearing the growl and feeling his grip had actually gotten tighter. In morbid curiosity she gave what she was holding onto another swift squeeze, and her eyes widened in realization at exactly what she was grabbing. I'm grabbing his Kami-sama, H is a freaking monster. She yelled in her head, while her hands actually began to subconsciously move up and down ever so slightly. Like I said I win. He stuttered out slightly, when he felt her slowly stroke him. What do you mean? She said almost on autopilot, her mind still racing at the thought of Naruto being that big, before her thoughts were brought back when she felt a light tap on her forehead, and saw Naruto's fist on it. Ah, I guess you do. She relented, though her hand was still moving up and down his pants. Naruto quickly released his grip on her, but saw she wasn't moving away and still going on with her ministrations. Anko-san, could you let go? He requested, slightly embarrassed at the turn of events, something Sul always seemed to occur when a female was alone with him, he noted. She mumbled, seeming to be in a daze, which was slightly true. Most of her thoughts were now on the enlarging member of the man she was still grabbing. Anko, he said with a little more force, making her jump and finally release her grip on him. RG, Gumen. She apologized, even though in the back of her mind a voice screamed for her to not only continue but go even farther. Kami-sama, he is a beast. I hope Hana-chan can handle him. Because he might just split her in half. She thought, the blush on her cheeks that began when she realized what she was doing, becoming redder. But if not, I could always ask to join if they both agree. She finished, while unconsciously licking her lips, her gaze right where she was grabbing him moments before. A loud and quite exaggerated cough broke her out of her Sul musings. As per our agreement, I won the bet, so I think we should get comfortable so I can hear your story. Anko sighed. She really didn't want to tell Naruto her story, but he won the duel fair and square, and despite what many in Konoha say, she tries to be an honorable shinobi as long as it doesn't have any hefty negative consequences to herself or the few people she cares about. We should just go to my place, it isn't far from here and it's more comfortable than sitting on rocks, she suggested, getting a nod from him. The two headed off, with Anko in front, which Naruto was thankful for considering he had to readjust himself while on the way. As Anko surmised, the house was only a few minutes away, and the two entered the small but cozy house. Naruto made himself at home as per Anko's threat of castration if he didn't and explored the house a bit while she made some tea. Anko soon called Naruto back to the small dinner table where a plate of dango and tea was set up. He smiled appreciatively at the food and drink. "Well, you didn't have to do all this for me." Naruto sat down and went to grab a stick of dango, only to be immediately smacked on the hand for his efforts. "Who said it was for you?" She teased with a sly smile, before grabbing 2 sticks, and sat down, a euphoric smile quickly crossing her lips as she munched on the treat. "I was only joking, Arashi-san, go ahead, just leave the last one for me," she said with a laugh that sent a chill down his spine at the fact that she said she was kidding, and yet he couldn't shake the feeling that if he didn't really leave her the last stick, he'd be missing his stick before he left. "Arigato, Anko-san," he thanked before grabbing a stick of dango for himself. "Please whenever you are ready to talk," he reminded her. Anko took a sip of tea to clear her tea of the rather starchy food, before lightly sighing with a forlorn expression crossing her face. "It's all because of Orochimaru," she began. Naruto's grip on his cup unconsciously tightened at the man's name. "When I was younger he was my idol. He was smart, strong, cunning, slightly handsome. To some, traits most people admired about shinobi. Things I admired about him. I wanted to be like him in every way. He was everything I wasn't as a teenager. So when I became a genin and was put on his squad, well, you could imagine how happy I was," she explained, the shadow of a warm smile creeping on her lips. "After a few months my team went to the Chunin exams, and after that I became a Chunin, which I was ecstatic about. Then something happened right after that changed my life forever. Orochimaru asked me to become his apprentice." She paused, while unconsciously rubbing her chin in phantom pain where that strange tattoo Naruto had seen before was. Of course I had accepted without hesitation. I mean, he was one of the legendary 3 Sannin and a Hokage candidate. Who in their right mind wouldn't accept? And for a while everything went great. Quote. She spoke, her voice becoming softer and softer with each passing word. "That is until the day Sandaime-sama had confronted Orochimaru on the grounds of treason, M&K Ping. In truth, I did help him collect people, but he told me they were only test subjects for a new medicine he was testing, that could increase the survival rates of shinobi severely injured while on missions. He said they would go back home within a few days, and to not worry, they wouldn't be harmed. What was I supposed to do?" His words were so convincing, and he was my sensei, she said, defending her actions, her emotional barriers beginning to break down from her reliving her past once more. Naruto could see the emotional turmoil that Anko was going through, if not for the cracking of her voice while speaking, then the fact she began to shake slightly. Her hands squeezed themselves so tightly on the table it looked like they were losing blood flow, they were so white. Naruto knew it was only moments before she broke down crying. Even the strongest of shinobi have emotional scars so deep that if brought to light could break them down in the same way. Before she could get a chance, however, Naruto reached out and placed a hand on top of hers and squeezed it reassuringly. She looked up at him, tears already forming at the corners of her eyes, and was slightly shocked to see him smiling at her. "Anko-san," he voiced, warm and soothing to the woman's ears. "You have no need to defend your past actions with me. I understand what kind of man Orochimaru is. I won't ever blame you for the despicable things that he has done nor the things he made you do yourself, so don't think you need to defend yourself with me, alright?" He questioned, squeezing her hand again in the same way, getting the slightest of nods from her. "Now whenever you are ready to continue, please do so." Arigato." Her voice was now hoarse. Naruto sat there for a good minute waiting for her to calm herself enough to continue her obviously tragic past. She took a deep breath and let it out slowly, before continuing on. Although Sandaime-sama had cornered Orochimaru, just like the snake he was, somehow was able to share away and escape. However, not before destroying his several laboratories across Konoha, his notes on what he was really doing in his home and secret compartments. And in the final act of betraying the trust I had in him. Marked me with the jutsu he was creating. Unfortunately, the jutsu knocked me out from the pain. And the next moment I was awake, I was in a Konoha jail cell being interrogated about everything he had been doing since I became his apprentice. After they finally told me what happened to Orochimaru after I blacked out, I told them everything I knew. But I knew I saw it all of their eyes, they hated me as much as they hated Orochimaru himself for what he had done. She spoke, her voice growing cold and hateful. And it wasn't until a few weeks after my imprisonment that I was finally released at the behest of Sandaime-sama. He called me into his office right after my release and requested I tell him everything I knew. I did so without question. After he heard the story, he decided that I was only a pawn in Orochimaru's plans. Whatever they truly were, and shouldn't be severely punished as such. Compared to people I used to call my comrades and even friends, he was one of the most understanding, and I was never able to tell him how much that meant to me when it was me against the village. He allowed me back into the shinobi ranks, with a few months probation as per the order of the council. I thought that with his decision things would at least become normal after a while and people wouldn't think ill of me. But I was wrong, so wrong. She continued, her voice growing softer again. All of the village vilified me for being Orochimaru's apprentice. They seemed to treat me as if I was that damned snake himself. People cursed me, called me snake whore, traitor, and sometimes much worse. They started horrible rumors about me, and no one save for a select few that I could literally count on one hand ever came to my defense. I quickly shut myself off from everyone but those people, hiding my true feelings from everyone. After a few years I was finally able to ignore the stares, whispers, and abuse and allowed myself to work on my career. And from that hard work I became a Junin. The rest is as you've seen, but no matter what those people say, I know who I am. And no matter what that man will by my hands. She finished, her voice growing vengeful. Silence entered the house once she finished her story, both of them thinking about her story. Anko, like many other of the people Naruto had met during his training, all seemed to live lives that were forced upon them in one way or another. Natsumi, Gaara, Yugito, Haku, and now Anko, all of them forced to lives that weren't of their own choosing. A low growl emanated from his tea at this fact, and caused Anko's attention to be put on him. Gomen, he murmured, noticing her watch him. Gomenasai about how things turned out for you, Anko-san. I'm sure it wasn't easy for you to live here. From my experience, people tend to use scapegoats to allow their inner feelings out. Naruto-kun with the Kyuubi attack, and now you with Orochimaru. And unfortunately, as long as those people have those scapegoats to make them feel better, they will never realize the wrongs they themselves have committed and that they are the true monsters after everything is said and done. He explained, getting a nod of understanding from the woman. Unfortunately, I can't relate enough to your situation to really console you. But if I may suggest, talking to Naruto-kun about this. If there is anyone in this village that can understand and sympathize with you about your life, it's him. I know you don't like talking about that part of your life with people, but I really think it'll be good to talk with someone who you can relate to that deeply, because he went through the same thing yourself, and sometimes was even worse off than you were. You don't have to talk to him, I'm just saying I think it could open your eyes to a few things that you've closed yourself off from all those years ago. He suggested with no hint of command nor hidden agenda. She looked at him a moment, wondering what he would get out of this. After all, no one does anything for free, especially in the world of shinobi. Though no matter how hard she stared, or tried to make him feel uncomfortable and spill some kind of lie to her, his gaze never wavered from hers. She respected that. Many couldn't hold a gaze at her for that long, for those who knew her anyway. She decided to take a chance on his words, and if he really did lie, well, he'd be missing the appendage that made him the opposite now, wouldn't he? I may just do that, but I don't really know the kid other than what I've heard or seen during the exams. Nor would I have a clue on how to even approach him. He doesn't seem very sociable, besides with people he is already familiar with. She admitted. He smiled knowingly. Actually, it's all on exactly how you approach him that can make him seem cold and unsociable. He's told me that most of the time people just think he is a kid and approach out of converse with him as such. Or in this village, well, I'm sure you can imagine. In truth, if you approach him in a friendly manner and converse accordingly, he will act the same way back with no qualms. In reality, he is actually quite sociable. Naruto explained almost sagely. I see. Perhaps I will try. Arigato, she said with a small smile. It's not a problem, I'm glad I could help in some fashion. He answered with his own smile. And thank you for telling me your story. I could see how hard it was for you to tell me, Sir Arigato. You beat me fair and square, my honor forced me to tell you. She admitted, making him smirk. I see, well considering that. I may consider teaching you that style, but I'll decide later. He said, seeing a spark of fire enter her hazel eyes at the notion she might still learn the style. Unfortunately it's getting pretty late and I've kept you from rest long enough, so I will wish you a good night, Anko-san, he finished, standing up, and bowed slightly. You too, Arashi-san, she smiled back, before Naruto waved and disappeared in a swirl of purple flames. Anko took Naruto's suggestion to heart and the next day went to search for his child self in hopes of speaking with him. She was finally able to find him and the two quickly hit it off once their introductions were finished. And Naruto was right, Anko had felt a lot better than she had in a long time after talking with a kindred spirit about each other's lives. She enjoyed it so much so that for the next few days she had actually met up with him and just talked to each other, silently becoming friends. Flashback end. Naruto's musing was cut short, when he felt something rub against his leg. He looked down to see Heieigen next to him, and nodded to the kit before the silver-furred fox vanished once again. Naruto kneeled next to the railing, before feeling Heieigen jump into his shoulder. Report, Naruto ordered softly. Hi Naruto-sama. I was able to find the Suna man whose scent I picked from the gloves and gave him the scroll. Heieigen yipped quietly in Naruto's ear. I see. Good work Heieigen-kun, Naruto praised, letting his hand slide across the kit's fur. Arigato Naruto-sama. Now I would invite you to watch these fights, but unfortunately there is a war that's about to go on that I'd rather not have you get swept up in. Go back home Heieigen-kun, and arigato for the help. I understand, and arigato for the thoughtfulness Naruto-sama. Good luck with the war, one no you will not lose. The kit yipped, with what sounded like pride in its voice before jumping off Naruto's shoulder, running around the corner of the fighter's box and poofed out of existence. So everything for Suna is in place. Natsumi's voice whispered. Hi. Back he got the scroll, and with the instructions I left he should see it when my match is taking place. So now all we do is wait. She spoke more in general than to Naruto, but making him nod in affirmation nonetheless. Lass and gentlemen, please settle into your seats. The final matches of this year's Chuunin exams will begin in a few moments. An excited voice called out through the speakers inside the arena, making everyone begin to settle down. It begins, Naruto said, almost ominously. A few minutes passed while the whole arena whispered, and waited with bated breath for the matches to begin. All of a sudden a Konoha Junin appeared in a swirl of leaves to the middle of the arena floor, making everyone's attention turn squarely on him. My name is Shiranui Genma and I will be the proctor for the final matches that will begin now. He said, his tone strong enough to carry over the entire arena. For the first match, will Sabaku no Temari and Nara Shikamaru come down to the arena floor? He ordered in a lax manner. Good luck Temari, Naruto called out, after receiving the same gestures from her brothers. The two opponents entered the arena floor a few yards away with Genma in the middle of them. Sabaku no Temari, Nara Shikamaru, are both participants ready? He questioned, seeing Temari flip her battle fan open, and Shikamaru just look on boredly. Very well, Hajime, he called out before jumping out of the way, letting the final matches of the Chunin exams commence. Cannon battle. Winner, Sabaku no Temari. Genma stated, most of the crowd silent at the turn of events on how the battle had ended, though someone finally began to clap, before the entire arena started to clap at Temari's unorthodox victory against the Nara genius. The two participants walked back to the fighter's box, with Temari getting congratulations from her family and friends, while Shikamaru got an earful from Ino. The crowd calmed shortly after, allowing Genma to announce the next match. Now for the second match. Will Hyuga Neji and Natsumi come down to the arena floor? He ordered, his tone already expressing his annoyance at having to constantly repeat himself before and after every match. Good luck Natsumi-san, the San siblings and Yugito gestured to her, making her smile and nod in appreciation, that is until she felt someone pinch her ass. She quickly turned to see the offending assailant, ready to K if necessary. Only to see a smirking Naruto wink at her. He then leaned in with his mouth breathing right on top of her ear, wished her good luck as well, before smirking and lightly nibbling her ear only to lean back a moment later with a eating grin on his face. Natsumi herself wasn't sure whether to give him a nice lustful kiss or a punch in the nose for doing that to her before her match, but decided on doing something about it later, and just smirked back at her mate. The crowd itself was whispering to themselves about the match-up, many wondering just who would win, this unknown girl or the Hyuga prodigy. To Sama, a young Hyuga girl called out, "Hi Hanabi." The leader of the Hyuga clan, Hiyashi, answered, "Do you think Neji-san will win? You should know better than many Hanabi of just how strong a Hyuga is. And Neji is a prodigy within the clan, branch family or not, it will take a very strong opponent to beat him. But to answer your question directly, I have no doubt that Neji will win this match," he answered, making his younger daughter nod in response. "But why does that girl give me such an ominous vibe?" The clan head mentally questioned, his eyes unconsciously hardening while watching Natsumi walk towards the arena floor. "What do you think, Ka-san? You have fought alongside the Hyuga clan before?" Kasumi asked, looking back and forth between the opposing teams, in an attempt to figure out who would win. Kushina's gaze darkened when her daughter asked her that, many thoughts racing through her mind, mainly being memories of Natsumi and Kyoshiro's match. They are both strong, and at first glance I would go with the Hyuga simply because of his Kekkei Genkai. But the Kyuubi's companion is not one to trifle with nor one to underestimate. Kyoshiro-kun's injuries are proof enough of that, and who knows what else that demon has probably taught her that we haven't seen. However, if I were to bet, I would put my money on the girl, Kushina answered, after awising the situation as best she could with the information she had. The two Uzumakis turned to their left when they heard a growl of hatred emanate from that direction, and noticed that it was coming from Kyoshiro himself. "It's bleeding again," Kasumi stated, seeing that blood was slowly oozing out from under his eye patch, as Kyoshiro continued to growl and stare daggers at the back of the young girl who bested him. "I will not lose the time we face each other." The usually emotionless boy cursed her mentally before grabbing a cloth and wiped away the blood from his face. "Interesting match, Hokage Dono. Who do you believe will win between the two?" "I would bet money on the Hyuga boy. His Kekkei Genkai is quite powerful and I've also heard he is the next prodigy to come out of that clan," the Raikage spoke. "In most circumstances I would agree with you, Raikage Dono, however Natsumi is a rather unknown shinobi. Even to me. She only joined Konoha's ranks a few months ago, so most people don't know what she is truly capable. But if her preliminary match against the Uzumaki boy was a taste of her strength, I think this match will prove to be quite entertaining." The Hokage answered, doing his best to sound unsure of who would win, even though he knew the outcome the moment this match was announced a month ago. "I see. Well, I hope you are right. The last match ended rather blandly, so I do hope these two will be able to put up a better show," the Raikage retorted. "You have no idea," Sarutobi mentally chuckled. The two participants made it to the center of the arena a few moments later, taking the same position the last participants took. "Hyuga Neji, Natsumi, are both participants ready?" Genma questioned, seeing Neji drop down into his family's Juken Taijutsu style, while Natsumi just looked on with a smirk. "Very well, Hajime," he called out before once again jumping out of the way to allow the second match to begin. Without a wasted moment, Natsumi sent a pair of kunai at Neji, who looked boredly when he took out his own and deflected the weapons. "Trying to keep your distance from me to have an advantage?" he rhetorically questioned. "Simply warming up," she dismissed, while yawning, which made the usually stoic Hyuga grunt with a small scowl. "Do not underestimate me," he advised coldly before launching himself at her. The two began a heated taijutsu match, or more precisely Neji was launching Juken strike after Juken strike while Natsumi simply evaded them, using her impressive flexibility. "So she is toying with me?" he mentally questioned, while launching another two-fingered strike, but when he predictably missed, pivoted his body and started spinning rapidly. "Kaiten!" he shouted, before a blue chakra barrier shot forth from him, hitting Natsumi in the chest, sending her skidding across the ground, her feet digging into the ground. "Seems I got a bit rusty all those years I was within Naruto-kun," she mentally thought, forgetting just how annoying Hyuga jutsus were. Natsumi dusted herself off, before flowing through a set of hand seals, and then slamming her hands into the ground. "Doryu Dango, Mausoleum Earth Dumpling." she called out as a large ball of mud formed almost 3 stories tall, and wide between them. Neji just smirked at her. She couldn't possibly think that he wouldn't be able to dodge such a large object. However, he didn't have to wait long to find out when he heard her call out another jutsu from behind the large mud ball. Uzumaki no Kaiten, Koryu Inden, Uzumaki Fire Style, Fire Dragon Flame Projectile. She can use Uzumaki style jutsu. I wasn't expecting that, but then again she was apparently that boy's traveling companion. So I suppose it's not out of the question for her to have learned some of their jutsu, him being an exile or no. Neji thought, slightly impressed that she hadn't passed out from using it, after hearing the reason more shinobi didn't learn the Uzumaki jutsu. Before Neji now stood a 3-story flaming ball, with most of the Orzents wondering just what exactly her plan is, while others were seething in rage. That damned Kyuubi. It actually disrespects us so much as to teach someone our clan's jutsu who is an outsider. Kushina mentally screamed, grasping her armrest so tightly that it cracked under the pressure, her 3 children not faring much better at the blatant show of disrespect. Kushina quickly turned her head towards the fighter's box and saw Naruto smirking knowingly while staring right back at her, his gaze expressing mirthful slyness, with the devilish smirk being the icing on the cake. Gonna need to show Natsu-chan a good time once all of this invasion business is behind us for that little jab on my family, he mentally thought, continuing to smirk at his mother. Back in the arena, Neji wondered what she was going to do with that giant flaming ball. He would have tried a preemptive strike while running around it, but he had no idea what she was doing on the other side. Despite his blood limit, patience was an ally at this moment. However, his and the Orzents' answer soon came when the ball shot off like a pinball towards him. Moving slowly at first before greatly picking up speed, with him never noticing the indentation Natsumi left when she punched it. Neji was shocked on just how she was able to move it when no jutsu was called out, and trying to move it physically was with the fire. He didn't have much time to think on it, however, and began to run out of the way as the ball rumbled across the ground. He got out of the way simply enough, and turned to see just what would happen to it when it would hit the arena wall. However, what he never expected to see was Natsumi standing in the path of the ball as it roared towards her. He came to a skidding stop, and looked on with the Orzents in morbid fascination on what would happen. None of them able to see Natsumi hand sealing, thanks to the giant flaming ball clouding their view. Uzumaki no Futon, Daytopper, Uzumaki Wind Style, great breakthrough. Natsumi's voice called out, before a giant gust of air shot from her small frame, and within seconds stopped the rolling monstrosity. Not only did the ball stop, but it began to spin the other way right towards Neji. With the increase in air adding fuel to the fire, the flames burned brighter and hotter, actually making the air around it slightly distorted from the sheer heat. Most of the Orzents gasped at this turn of events, most not believing she could stop such a large object with a Futon jutsu alone. Meanwhile, Neji cursed under his breath. He knew Natsumi wouldn't be an easy opponent to beat. But he figured he had her outmatched at the very least with battle tactics. It seemed, however, that the girl was well versed with strategic usage of her surroundings and jutsu, but then, living for over a millennia will do that. Neji was already on his way to the other side of the arena to avoid being hit once more, keeping his attention on the position of the ball. His pupil-less eyes soon widened at what he and many of the shinobi in the Orzents saw next. Neji chanced a glance over his shoulder to make sure his eyes weren't lying, and lo and behold, they weren't. Currently falling from the air was Natsumi, heading straight into a crash course with the rumbling ball. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.